But look at that, by just 2 points. So really, that puts it in a virtual dead heat among likely voters there. CNN correspondent Nick Valencia is here, and he spoke with some of the people who will be voting in Georgia. And what a story.
It's really interesting, the changing dynamic of this traditionally red state. The Mosqueda family, I spent the day yesterday with them. He is conservative, a Republican, registered as a Democrat, but votes Republican, he says. But all this may be changing in Georgia. It is a traditionally red state, but it's slowly turning purple because of people like the Mosqueda family. It has two parts to it. It's a newly influx of residents from out of state that vote Democratic, and it's also Republicans who can't seem to bring themselves to vote for Donald Trump.
It's Friday at the Mosqueda household. The sun hasn't even come up yet, and they're already talking about their future.
Solomon, do you want to try this avocado?
Alberto and his wife Keisha moved from Virginia to Georgia about 2 years ago. This will be their first presidential election as state residents, and it's people like them who are changing the historically red state purple.
You can tell everybody's looking at him like, man, just end this.
Mosqueda is a conservative. He didn't vote for President Barack Obama in 2008 or in 2012. Nor does he really support Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. But he says he's voting for her anyway.
If it wasn't for the candidate that's running now, I probably would have voted for that other candidate rather than Clinton.
You would have voted Republican?
More than likely.
What is it about her that it's hard for you to totally accept her?
The emails, the Benghazi stuff, you know, being a military guy, you know, you take all that into account, the Benghazi especially, the emails, the security, and all that, and it's just like, they're just direct breaches and direct violations of what the simple things that they teach you even as a lower enlisted guy in the military.
Try it, it's good.
Smell it, you smell it? It smells good.
The Mosquedas are a house divided. While husband Alberto usually votes Republican and relies on his Christian values, he says he can't bear to vote for Trump, especially after what he said about Latinos. His wife Keisha has always voted Democrat. Her vote, she says, is guided by what she wants the future to look like for her 5-year-old son, Solomon.
I'm very concerned about him in the future. A minority male. That's something that's just always on my mind.
Solomon might not yet understand the importance of his parents or the effect their votes could have in Georgia, but he knows this much.
Which color are you voting for?
Blue.
Little 5-year-old Solomon, cute kid there. So the Mosqueda family says that they're a complicated family. Mrs. Mosqueda says that she actually feels she's more conservative than her husband, though she traditionally votes Democratic and he traditionally votes Republican. They both agree on this, though. There is nothing that Donald Trump can say that are going to change their minds about him.
All righty. Nick Valencia, great package.
Good to see you.
Great
Thank
to
you.
understand that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Victor?
All right, it's the fastest growing racial group in America, Asian Americans, and there is an historic shift happening in how they vote that could certainly impact the election. So I traveled to Florida to talk to some of the voters about their feelings on the candidates, voter outreach, and the issues that are driving their decisions.
On the campus of the University of North Florida, politics is the topic of the day, and most of these students will be voting for Hillary Clinton.
I think ultimately, like, her vision for the United States, it kind of aligns with my vision of, like, open-mindedness, kind of accepting everyone.
Justin Datto and his friends are at the leading edge of a seismic political shift among Asian American voters, from once reliable Republican votes to a Democratic stronghold. In the 1992 three-way race, Republican President George H.W. Bush earned 55% of the Asian American vote. 20 years later, Democratic President Barack Obama got 73% over Mitt Romney.
We have never seen a swing like that for any group.
Karthik Ramakrishnan is the director of the National Asian American Survey.
Democrats are far more likely to be reaching out to these voters than Republicans. We also saw Bill Clinton do a lot in terms of outreach activity and also nominating Asian Americans.
And Democrats hope that outreach will pay off this year, as Asian American voters could have an oversized impact in November.
There are these new destination states, states like Florida and other states like North Carolina that are now battleground states for the presidency. These are the states where you have newer Asian American populations, and they're growing very rapidly.
At the top of the list, Jacksonville, Florida. Its mostly Filipino community has the highest population of Asian Americans in any of the 2016 battleground states. Most analysts say Donald Trump needs to win Florida to win the White House. And it's Mauro Gans's job to find the votes. He's with the Filipino-American Republicans of Northeast Florida.
The statistics would show that Democrats are doing very well recruiting Asian Americans.
I think they appear to have very effective recruiting, and I would probably yield to that statement. I guess they have the support of what they hear, meaning the media. So if there's so much they hear from the media about the Democrats, they would lean towards that.
We've also seen factors on the Republican side that have pushed them away.
At an August rally, when Trump reiterated his proposal to ban immigrants from what he calls terrorist nations, he mentioned the Philippines.
Hillary Clinton wants to have them come in by the hundreds of thousands.
Soon after, a Philippines lawmaker proposed banning Trump from entering their country.
A majority of Asian American registered voters have a very unfavorable view of Donald Trump, and that should be very concerning to the Republican Party, because it's possible that Donald Trump will turn off Asian American voters even more.
The survey found that 59% favor Clinton and just 16% favor Trump. But there is opportunity for each party here. For these two voters, the choice is less about who they want to be the next president, but more about who they don't.
Are you a Trump supporter?
I am a Trump supporter.
Tell me why.
Because I cannot be for Hillary.
Are you excited to vote for Hillary Clinton?
I won't necessarily say excited, just I'm excited not to vote for Trump.
All right, here to talk about this, CNN political commentator, Mitt Romney's former policy director, Lenny Chen. Lenny, good morning to you.
Hey, Victor, good morning.
So you've written about this, and I've read your pieces. I just want to illustrate for our viewers just how quickly and dramatically this change is happening. Let's put up the numbers among Filipino Americans. This is from 2012 to 2016. And I got to say, some of these numbers are rounded if things don't add up exactly, but the numbers are rounded from the survey. There was a 10-point advantage for Republicans in 2012, an 18-point swing, and now a 28-point advantage toward the Democrats in just one cycle. 19 points for Korean Americans, Hmong Americans, 20 points for the Vietnamese. And this is just one cycle. Are we looking at solely the Donald Trump effect, or is there something else happening here?
I do think Donald Trump has something to do with this, Victor. Clearly, the rhetoric that he's used has been problematic to many new Americans, and that certainly includes Asian Americans. Victor, clearly the rhetoric that he's used, the tone that he's used has been problematic to many new Americans, and that certainly includes Asian Americans. Part of this is part of, and you had this in your package, there has been this shift since the presidency of George H.W. Bush that's taken place over the course of 2 decades, where Asian Americans have become increasingly democratic. There are a number of reasons for that, which we can get into, but this particular shift has been particularly pronounced as well because the political preferences in the Asian community are much less well set. They're much less permanent than in some ways they are with other communities of color in the United States.
Yeah, there are large percentages of these groups that lean toward a party or a candidate instead of standing firmly with that group or behind a candidate. But I've also read that you believe that the biases in America's colleges and institutions are also playing a role here. How so?
Well, you know, one of the things that we've seen generally in American politics is that as individuals have had more exposure to higher education, they do tend to become more progressive and more liberal. And that is certainly no exception for the Asian American community. And so the argument that's been put forward, and I've argued this, others have as well, is that some exposure to institutions of higher learning, exposures, for example, to faculty at many institutions of higher learning, particularly elite institutions of higher learning, have driven particularly younger Asian Americans, like some that you've interviewed, away from conservative politics and toward liberal politics. And so that trend is certainly one worth watching as well.
All right, Lenny Chen, thanks for helping us understand this growing demographic, this growing voter base that according to the survey, 70% of the people surveyed said they have not been contacted by either major political party. We'll talk about that at 10 o'clock in CNN Newsroom. Lenny Chen, thanks so much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.